Hello, Giacomo.
I,
How's life?
well, I'm from Italy, so it's a little bit harsh
Oh my
right now.
gosh.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry to hear
but
that. You doing okay?
yeah, I'm fine.
With
Thank you.
everything going on? That's crazy. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Stay safe. Stay well.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, so, okay, so you reached out about what you wanted to get from this. You shared some of your works with me, and we're going to be going over those. Here's one of them. And tell me a little bit about yourself and about where you're headed and where you want to go, like what's your dream job? Where are you in school right now? Like just tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I'm still learning product design
Hmm.
in Italy in the Academy of Fine Arts. So I'm in between product design and industrial design.
Hmm.
I've done my master um, just now in VR.
Okay.
It's about VR technologies, but my school is more for CG. So we divided the master in three groups. One is for concept artists, the other one is for filmmakers, and the last one is for games. And I've
Got it.
done the games one. I studied in the last 2 years, I think. Yeah, probably, yeah. 3D by myself. And last year I took part in the course from Alan McKay for VFX.
Which
And
course was that?
the Alan McKay, the one who made the course for VFX for filmmakers.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one. I'll have to check it out.
Well, yeah, it's mostly for films, and I've discovered my passion, my hobby for VFX. But
Cool.
it was not mm, for me. They are more for films.
Right.
And on September, I decided to take part of in my master.
Hmm.
So I moved a little bit more into the games production.
Sure.
We've done a lot of 3D modeling and shader, but we also had 1 week for learning VFX for games, and I discovered that it was a little bit different for VFX for films.
Yeah, yeah.
It was funny because I had the first impact with drawing VFX instead of tweaking nodes for particles, and it was really, really funny. But as I told you, I'm not really into drawing. Right, right now, I'm still not really into drawing. It's a little bit hard for me.
Interesting. Okay. So that's really good background. So you've got some film training, lots of different things that you've tried with materials and shaders and multiple
Yeah,
aspects of production. And a lot of the work you shared with me is drawing and painting work, right? Like
yeah,
actually, the work that you sent over
it's
here,
just painting. Yeah,
it's just like 2D textures, and then you've got the animation. It's very styly. It's funny because I would have assumed the opposite, that this was what you were focused on, would be these sorts of paintings, rendering, design, all this good stuff. So I'm curious to see your 3D stuff too that you're talking about. Like you've done all this 3D stuff, but if you just want to focus on this part because maybe it's a weak spot or something you want to improve on, that's fine. We can look at it. I was just curious to see where you've been at with your other stuff, but
well, it's for me the weakest spot is right the drawing. At least I'm not still so comfortable with it. So
yeah,
I'm having a lot of trouble. Also because I'm coming from a product design, industrial design background. So for me, drawing is AutoCAD,
right.
uh, and I never had the opportunity to hand paint something. And this is my very first possibility to create something with my hand.
Right.
So the part of the 3D particle part is not so weak. And also I had the opportunity to work as a VFX artist during the master for our thesis.
Hmm.
So in Unity, so I at least tried and created something, but
Right,
I
right.
never had painted something. So,
Well, okay. So then we can focus on this aspect then.
yeah,
I think that's a
thank you.
great thing to do because, as you know, the foundations, really having a good understanding of the foundations is going to help you a lot in all of your 3D work as well. Have you read the book Elemental Magic?
Yeah.
Perfect. So you will be speaking a common language then. Let me see, what is the size of this? Okay.
I
Oh,
try to place all my work in the in a manner in which you can find them as I made them in my time. So the first one is the first one that I made, and then
the purple
the
and
other.
blue one is the first one that you made?
Oh no, the PDF one. From the PDF, you can see the
Oh,
first
yeah,
one
yeah,
is
yeah.
the first one that I made ever.
Okay, then let's take a look. Sorry, I was getting Flash set up. You might have noticed a few windows flying by. I was
Yeah,
getting Flash set up so that we can look at your animation frame by frame, but we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so this was the first one, or was it further down that you said?
no, the second one.
This one?
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's a great start. Honestly, in the you went ahead and got it nice and smudgy smudged here. I think
Yeah.
probably the thing to look for is um, well, there's a couple things. I would say first off, I would just want to see this in game because my sense is that it's already going to look pretty good in game. That this is not bad by any stretch of the imagination. I think that it could use some refinement in that the orange shapes are generally the same thickness throughout, and you're not getting very skinny areas of orange or very thick areas of orange. I guess you have one here, and then kind of over here it just gets sort of busy, but it's not like a big uh, spot of orange. Also, watch out for the yellow and the orange don't always play together. So, like a perfect example would be here, where the yellow highlight, which is supposed to be the deepest recess down inside, is shoved off to the side of where the orange is at. And so it's creating a weird feeling like I can kind of tell that it's just yellow. Like it doesn't feel like believable
Mm-hmm.
flame texture, right?
Okay.
And that's just because you got a little crazy with the smudge there and you shifted the
Yeah.
orange off to the side from the yellow, and the yellow needs to stay in the core or the center of that orange. And so you might just fill in this darker area with orange here to fix that. That's one way to fix it. Um, Similarly, up here, you've kind of got yellow off on its own and it's getting desaturated in front of that gray. So, try not to let the yellow go wandering off away from the orange. It needs to sit inside of it or at least on the edge of it. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, like you have the yellow on the edge of the orange here, that's great. That's really strong. And, here, yeah, it's working okay. It's maybe getting a little dark. It feels a little funny here. Like I'm not saying it always has to be perfectly set inside of the orange. Like I said, it can come up to the orange, but the key is you need to make sure that if the yellow is transparent at all, that the orange sits behind it to boost it up. So like
Mm-hmm.
where you have transparent yellow here, you can see how it's nice and saturated there, but when it gets in front of the gray without the orange behind it, it gets desaturated. And it creates
Okay.
this weird yellow here where this whole shape is yellow, but because it's in front of gray right here, it's falling off and not working. Also, like, maybe have some little hits of yellow in here where it's not transparent, like bring some of this kind of yellow just into spots in here. So some variety within the yellow, overlapping the yellow on the orange is going to be valuable. I think sometimes you have a little bit of noise right here, like a repeating shape, where it's like yellow, dark yellow, and I think that that's going to call attention to itself. The yellow should just be a nice little highlight, a little accent sitting inside of that, but it shouldn't be like a really busy, repetitive shape sitting there.
Okay.
I think here is really nice, where it's this just nice stringy core. That's a great shape for the yellow. Again, though, how you overlay it on the orange, be very conscious of that, and just spend some time refining the shapes. If you wanted this texture to feel kind of really nice and refined, that would be the recommendations I would have. The other thing would be on the orange, like the yellow has some nice crisp edges to it with some blurry spots too. On the orange, I think you could get a few crisp edges as well every now and then, just to add some variety there and make it feel like a hand painted texture and not just like it's a smudgy, nondescript sort of fuzzy texture. You could get it to feel like those brush strokes. Typically, when you're going for a painted style, it's helpful to have some sharper edges every now and then, just to show like it feels like a brush stroke. Yeah. Yeah, and then you can extrapolate that. Whatever you change here, obviously will change here, because in the class we
Yeah.
talk about how to switch that over. I like your dissolve maps. These are pretty cool. I'm curious to see how these dissolve and how they feel. It looks like they're going to feel really interesting and swirly.
Well, I've made it in real, and it's a little bit too black in the middle of those line, and they dissolve to a little bit too before too earlier, because it's completely black instead of some kind of dark gray,
Okay,
and it's creating some kind of really a hole, like a hole in the shape.
I see. I see. Yeah, you could boost that up by changing this to be a multiply layer in Photoshop and then laying it on top of some kind of very soft gradient behind it.
Okay.
And then you can change the opacity to get that filled in pretty easily to, to bring it, to boost it up to whatever you need. Um, you can save the honeycomb gradient that's sitting behind it and then like layer that behind it and kind of get it to feel where you need it to be at. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's an easy way to bump that up. Yeah, was this an earlier attempt? This is really dark in the middle. I could see this having an
Yes.
issue.
Yeah. I've made like 3 or 4 different drawing of
Uh-huh.
the soft map, because I was trying to figure out this one is with whiter stripes on the outer edge,
Hmm.
and I was trying to figure out how the engine will read the map.
Got it. Really cool.
And this one was really like white,
Yep.
because
Yep.
I saw that the black was completely creating like a hole, and so I tried to create like a white layer behind, and it was still a little bit too dark in some parts of the drawing. So
Yeah.
it was still creating some kind of hole. Like, I have no idea how to
You can
explain.
also play with the settings in Unreal and adjust how it falls off, how it dissolves by adjusting
Oh,
the alpha over life.
yeah. But if I'm going to adjust the alpha, it will shrink or enlarge the time in which the alpha will fade off.
Right. Right. I'm just saying playing with both. I always play with both to try to refine it
Oh, okay. No,
exactly. Like
okay.
try a little bit in Photoshop, try a little bit in Unreal and find that balance. Really as an effects artist, you're a problem solver and you're trying to figure out where's the problem? Where's the challenge that I'm running
Yeah.
into? Is it here? Is it there? What's going on? And sometimes you can even run like a little test, like just get a very simple gradient that's pure white to pure black and just see how that's working before you throw in a more complex texture and you'll get an idea of what to
Mm.
expect.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's all glowy. Yeah, you really took a lot of stabs at this. That's awesome. It looks like you're really trying out this new skill set of texture painting. It's really cool.
Yeah, I'm still having some trouble with Photoshop itself because I never used it, so it's a little bit too. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the layer and all the stuff like multiply, color dots, and everything like that because
Yeah.
I
Well, this is a great exercise then to get familiar with all that because we use a lot of advanced techniques
yeah,
in this exercise.
yeah,
That's funny. Cool. Okay, so this is really rad. I really love these shapes. Tell me how you're enjoying this aspect of
well,
it.
this was the first one, the first standard that I made,
Hmm.
and I've tried to copy one from Kevin Leroy,
Hmm.
Leroy, and I love the fact that he made like some kind of little stripes of electricity outside,
Hmm.
and but I think that it's a little bit too creating like an S. It's
Mm.
still in the middle, like the weight of the thunder is balanced between the two sides,
Yeah.
and in fact the other I try to mm, move the weight of the thunder or in one part of the side like this one or the other. I tried but the problem with the thunder that I may have recognized by myself at least is that for me they are a little bit like too magic, not like a electricity but always
Mm.
feels like a magic, like
Yeah,
those
yeah.
kind of shades are a little bit like okay, it's a lighting but it's coming from a magic source or
Yes. I definitely think so. It definitely looks magical, not like realistic at all. And this is an interesting one for me because I feel like this bolt here would probably be work better as like static electricity. So say if there's a character that's electrocuted and you want to put electricity just kind of all over their body, just everywhere.
Mhm.
I would use probably something like this, like a little particle, one appears here, one appears there, and then all over just one at a time, because it doesn't have any sense of motion forward. So like in the class we do like a lightning bolt that just travels from the top down, right? And it goes in one direction. And of course you want to put wobble and things in there, but what you've done here is you've actually added lines that are perfectly horizontal,
Yeah,
or even like bouncing back opposite back up as it comes down, which is going to fight against it if you're trying to get it to feel like it's coming downward.
yeah, yeah. In fact, I
Now,
tried.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I tried to make other lighting,
Hmm.
and with the probably with the last one, I've reached the at least for my opinion. This is too much
Yep.
like a bolt, but the other one, there is also another one like this one.
Hmm.
It's a little bit more like moving towards, but still it's like too magic.
I don't think you can be too magic. I mean, honestly, I think I wouldn't say it's too magic. I just think you got to decide, do you want it to be magic or not? And how magic do you want it to be? So if your goal is to do realistic lightning, then yeah, it's probably too magic. And you probably shouldn't have made it blue and purple. But if you want it to be magical, I think it's great. I think it's a fun style, and I think it's really usable for all of that. So I would say that this is really strong. I think the one thing that I would caution about is that sometimes uh, these here are a little round. So I like the blue shapes, but the purple shapes feel like they're a little bit. It's hard to even describe. Like they're not acting like electricity, or they're not shaped like electricity.
Uh,
Like they kind of are more like string or something because of how round they are. And they have these little corners, but the overall shape and motion is very curvy.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this has some curves to it, but it's also got some really bold, sharp parts too. And I think this is going to run into trouble when you start animating it in the game engine itself, because this purple one follows mostly the same direction as the blue one, and they really rely on each other to match up perfectly. And something we like to do with them is to separate them out. Like, you don't want to have too many different colors and too many different shapes in just one flipbook. Usually in a game engine, you want to separate them into separate parts so that the one can play and then the other can like be an accent to it, or it can like scale wider or skinnier separately in different timings or something like that. So kind of planning to build this purple one in a different way, like maybe it still follows a similar thing, but maybe it's much simpler. Like is more straight up and down with just like a longer zigzag and then slightly different shapes or something. I really like your frames. I mean, overall, it's fun because like what we see here is actually, I think you solved some of it in the animation. We can just dive into that. Like looking in here, so I brought it in, and let me zoom out so that we can see the whole thing. Okay. Yeah, so super cool stuff, by the way. I really like it a lot. I think what I'm struggling with is that the purple probably moves too much for how few frames there are. Like, there's not a lot of frames.
Yeah.
But then the purple is just traveling all over the place. Like, here, this corner up here is really small, and then it gets really big, which is cool, but then it goes away. So, like, if you're going to do something like that, like, get me excited about this big thing here, let it dissolve out here, like, let it resolve, because a lot of energy went into that big turn right there. So, let it pay off. And again, I think the roundness, I mean, on the one hand, I'm like, I don't like the roundness because it doesn't feel like electricity necessarily. Maybe you want the roundness because that's like the magical part of it, right? Like the bolt is the regular part of electricity, but then the purple is like, ooh, it's some kind of magic, right? So maybe you can leave it round and that's fine, but um, yeah, I just think that. And then I don't know, yeah, the purple is just kind of, I don't know where it's going. The blue I do. I love the motion on the blue. In fact, I wish I could just hide the purple layer and just look at only the blue. But let's look at this playing. Ah, it's too fast. Let's change our frame rate to 15, and then give it a bit of a gap. Yeah, like the blue has sort of this wiggle to it, but the purple is just creating a lot of noise. Like, I don't know what's happening. It's like a tangle of string um, looping around too quickly. Even though any single frame, I like any single frame. They're pretty nice, right? And you just need to work on tying them all together. So let's see, you've got 7 frames. Yeah, you could probably extend this to be a 16 frame animation. Even if you just put one in between each of these, it would be better. But even better than that would be to start from scratch, to just take the purple
Yeah.
out and to really plan your motion. Because I find that sometimes when I try to in between frames, keyframes that aren't working, it's just I spend more time on something that in the end I'm not super happy with. But if I have a nice plan on those keyframes and I lay them out deliberately, then I can really control it. And this exercise is really going to help you out in your 3D animation, because you're going to learn about controlling shapes and getting it to move the way you want it to move and not just sort of letting it do what it wants, which happens very easily in game engines, for sure. For sure. Questions so far?
Well, I have a little some question for you, but it's a little bit like, um, well, the first one is how can I start working as a VFX artist?
Hmm. Hmm. Well,
So,
yeah, that's a great question. Now that then I would ask you back, what studio or which kind of studio or which kind of game would you want to work on? Because it really is different depending on where you want to work.
well, I think that I wish to work in some stylized video games
Okay.
because I think that even if it's really hard for me, it's like funny to create stuff with my hands and like paint and study everything.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so like, I have played a lot League of Legends, but also World of Warcraft. So probably Blizzard and Riot.
Yep. So you're doing exactly the right exercises. The class is designed to help with hand painted styles like World of Warcraft or like League of Legends. And so what you're doing with this stuff is critical. Working on your painting skills, this kind of thing is great to see. I think, just continuing to refine this kind of skill and figuring out how to paint clouds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, these very graphic shapes, I
Oh
would
yeah,
like, oh,
like
go ahead.
well, this is my like the test for the explosion because I was creating the base smoke, the part that I've already made the shadows and the highlights,
Hmm.
and then I was playing with my friend because we are in quarantine, so we don't have anything else to do, and I was playing Ziggs. So I try to create Ziggs with some kind of I know those are very different kind of styles.
Hmm. Hmm.
The base it's like really cartoonish. The top one is a little bit. I was trying to create some kind of um, fiery smoke shape,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think
and
it's a really cool shape. I think the key for this is figure out how you're going to get it to look like that in the game because
oh
you'll
yeah,
learn so much about how these shapes can move and how it's going to look good in 3D when you try to paint a texture and then take it in. So maybe this is one texture on like a big dome mesh or like a sphere mesh, right? And you can just see how that feels. Like you can take your dissolve texture, where is it? It's so high up.
oh yeah. Then
Yeah, it's like a dissolved texture, like one of
yeah, yeah.
these, and apply it to Ziggs, right?
Okay.
That's a perfect example of seeing,
Mm-hmm.
can I get it to dissolve and to sort of look like this and have these kinds of shapes in it, which is different from in the class, which is really cool if you wanted to try that and try to get it to dissolve on a mesh and just get that one mesh to look really nice and how it dissolves. And you'll learn a ton about how to get this stuff to animate and get these shapes to work.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I think too, as far as the composition goes, it needs a lot more. And I know this is just the smoky parts, but you know, what we would look for in a portfolio would be like, the focal point, the hot core, the feeling of flames and energy coming out, the sparks and the cinders on the outside, and just making it feel like a full explosion. Um, that's going to be a really big part of this as well. The rendering on the clouds is very simple gradients. I think you could do a little bit to add some more round shapes, to break up the edges of where it transitions to shadow and just make it a little more interesting. Right here where it like comes up, it's sort of round in the corners, whereas smoke usually those shapes they overlap with each other and they create like a point, right, where they
Mm-hmm.
intersect.
Yeah.
They don't sort of round out like a smooth valley. So yeah, when two spheres come together, they just have a nice crisp point in between. So areas like this right here where it's dipped look kind of funky. And yeah, don't be afraid to have a few crisp shapes. Again, like when you're rendering, you don't want to make it all fuzzy. sometimes you want a nice sharp edge to break up the fuzziness. Otherwise, it just feels like overly smudged and blurry. So watch for that too.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be my thoughts for this one. Really interesting shapes. You have a knack for designing really interesting shapes. I would just say think about how to get the shapes to feel coherent, like they're moving somewhere, like they're driven from a single point of energy or motion, so that they make sense, and that they'll be a lot easier for you to animate in the game engine or in 2D or wherever you want to animate them. It'll just be a lot easier that way. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is last one. I already made the one with the dragon, smoky dragon. I took it from Vega, Oscar Vega, and I was trying to figure out how he was making like this kind of stripes of smoke, like it's cloaked, but it's at the same time smoke. And I tried to recreate the feel in the sphere on the in the right part, but I discovered that like how can it make like really straight lines, like it's sharp, and for me like I have to create a really big lines, big black lines to create a straight line, but he can create the same straight line with 2 pixels probably. I have no idea, but it's really straight and it's not so black in the smoke.
So you're
Smoke.
talking about Vagar?
Yeah. The in the last part, he made like Vega made those really straight lines, but I had to create them in the right part using a bigger brush.
Oh, you mean in the class, in the videos in the class? Or are you talking about
No, I took this image from his session because I was trying to figure out how to
Oh,
paint.
this is an artist. I see.
Yeah.
Which so this is not you. This is you studying another artist.
Yeah.
So which okay.
The dragon is the artist, and
The purple thing is you?
purple one. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm with you now. So someone else painted this part
Yeah.
and you're trying to understand how they did it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's zoom in on this. Can you zoom in here? Yeah. Okay, because we're talking nitty-gritty here. Okay, so you're saying that you want, okay, I see what you're saying. So different brush size for sure. What you've done here is a great block in. I think this is a great start to get to where they are at, right? The key is you see he's got multiple tones. So he's got like other different types of purple. So he's got lighter purples and darker ones and very subtle shapes kind of painted in. Over here, is this what you're trying to recreate?
Yeah,
For
because
here?
yeah.
Yeah, so what he's got is he's done it with layers. So he got a nice big shape first, which you've got, and then he locked the alpha and then went in with a very, very soft brush. So like some kind of a fuzzy gradient brush and just you just tap that and it'll get this nice gradient of like pink fading onto the purple, right? And then on top of that, maybe on a different layer, or it might be the same layer, I don't really know. Then you can come in and paint these other sorts of shapes. And then they fade in and out, thick and thin, and they get, looks like he has like, pen pressure fades it off as well at some places. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. And the last one is this kind of drawing is a little bit too much for VFX for video games, or like I don't know where is the point in which you have to stay, like when VFX is too much and when it's okay, is
I,
good.
I
Like,
think it's really inspiring. I think I look at this and I'm thinking in my head, how am I going to do this in game? And it's a really good challenge. So I would say that this is not too crazy because there are things that you could do. You would have to combine it with a good character model and good character animation, and then parts of that character would become visual effects, like around here, probably. But I think it's very possible. Like we do things like this in League of Legends with characters like Evelynn or Yorick, where they have like smoke coming off of them, you know?
mhm.
And then you could just make it feel more inky, like inky smoke. There's other skins I know that have the same kind of thing going on as well. They're getting really increasingly ambitious with how they integrate effects with characters in the game because now we have a really good pipeline. But it took us a while to get a strong pipeline for that. So when it's just you working on it, don't feel bad if it's if you can't pull off characters like this because uh, getting a good pipeline for a character that's also made of visual effects is very challenging. It's very challenging. So for now, just sticking with like you're doing here, rendering a visual effect that's not a character, but it's just a visual effect part of it, and then trying to render it the same way that they rendered this, I think that's perfect for you to focus on.
Okay.
So we're out of time, but do you have any other
Yeah.
questions for me before we end?
Mm, no, it's okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure meeting you. Stay well. Best wishes to you and your neighborhood. I hope for all the best for you guys. We're rooting for you.
Thank you. That's a lot. Thank you.
Okay. We'll see ya.